All right.
My connection with KIRIPIA Parish began not too long after I arrived in Papua New Guinea. My very first month or two, I was stationed with a veteran SPD priest from Holland. His name is Jerry Buss. And I was there to get acclimatized to the country, the culture, and to learn Pidgin. Within a month or so, I learned Pidgin, and then I moved on to Kuruk Parish. Arnold Stephan had been 7 years in the country, and now he was going on his home leave for the first time. And I was there to take over and look after the parish during that first year when he was away. And I had valuable, good experience there because he was a great missionary. And after he came back, I spent 6 months in another parish called KIRIPIA. I lived in a grass hut, cooked my own meals over an open fire, and had another good pastoral experience, and I was busy studying the language too. And then towards the end of that year, the bishop asked me to go to KIRIPIA because the German priest, Anton Ressler, was going on his first home leave to Germany. And so I arrived in the parish, spent about a month with him, getting to know the parish. 2 lay missionaries were there, were going on leave with him. 2 other lay missionaries stayed with me that following year. So I was there from late 1965 to late 1966 and got to know the valley, the people. People were very primitive. No one spoke Pidgin in those days. The men hardly wore clothes. They had these leaves in the back and a little apron in the front, and the women just had a few strings front and back. All the women were bare-breasted. And no one knew Pidgin. The only white people there was a patrol officer from Australia there, and there was a Lutheran pastor from Germany across the valley, and myself on the other side of the valley. And there were a few Americans that founded what they called the PNG Bible Church. It was very kind of a Protestant, anti-Catholic group. We had a little Land Rover that got around. The roads were very primitive, even more primitive in those days than they are now. It took about 2.5 hours to drive to Mount Hagen. And so I have very fond memories of that first year at KIRIPIA. And then when Tony Ressler came back from Germany, the bishop appointed me parish priest of the Mun parish. So I went to Mun for 22 years. Mm-hmm. In 1988, there was trouble in KIRIPIA parish, and the bishop needed somebody really experienced, and I had, 23, 24 years already in the country. So he asked me if I would transfer to KIRIPIA, and I was sad leaving Mun, but I took my 2 dogs and a couple of pussycats. I had 3 lay missionaries at the time, and we all moved to KIRIPIA. And that was the start of another 29 years at KIRIPIA, and it's been a time of blessing, a time of growth. I got a lot of support from overseas, and the people just took to the way that we ran the parish, and setting up structures like a parish council, and having retreats, having in-service, having workshops to train the different ministries. When I first went to KIRIPIA in 1988, there were just 12 catechists and me, the parish priest. There was no one else doing anything. But gradually we got communion ministers, prayer leaders, Bible leaders, family life coordinators, and healing ministry people who pray over the sick. When I recently left KIRIPIA, we had 100 communion ministers. Most of them were women, bringing communion to the sick at the village and helping to distribute communion on Sundays. So I saw a tremendous amount of growth in the physical plant. I think I built about 17 buildings, and mostly to do with the 3 schools. education was my background. I have my degree in that, so it was easy for me to really get involved big time in education, where all the children within 5 or 6 miles came to our 3 schools. There were 400 kids in the elementary, that's prep to grade 2, 800 kids in primary, that's grade 3 to grade 8, and we recently started a new high school. We have grade 9 and grade 10, there's about 350 kids there. So altogether, in a normal school day, there were about 1,500 kids swarming around the parish compound every day. We had a Mass in English for the grade 8 students every Wednesday morning at 8 o'clock. And on Thursday morning for about 30 years, we had Mass for the elementary and primary school kids. I put a lot of English in it too because they're studying English and they like to hear a different accent. And the kids appreciate a good English speaker, and speaking good English is the key to the future in the country too. So these past 29 years have seen growth and spiritual growth, physical growth, and the growth of the parish plant, and gotten on very, very well with the people. On the 26th of January, we had a farewell celebration. A couple of thousand people turned out. And different educated people who had gone through our school congratulated me on the work that I did in education. Because over the years, KIRIPIA Primary School has become one of the best schools in the whole province. And everyone knows that most schools send 2/3 of the kids on to high school after grade 9. But our school, for many years, has sent 100% of the kids on to grade 9 after grade 8. And the people appreciate that very, very much, having a good school in the community. And so my years at KIRIPIA have been a blessing. I've carried on the traditions of the early missionaries. I had 9 years with William Ross, our founder, and I kind of picked up a lot of good points from all these other pioneer missionaries too. So now, after 53 years, the Lord is telling me, my body is telling me, my spirit is telling me it's time to make a change, and looking forward to what the Lord is going to do with me in my life in the next few years. Mission accomplished.